Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to be making a plumb bob. Well, no, I didn't mess up, and no, you aren't mistaken. Yes, you heard me correctly, and yes, you saw me make a plumb bob last week. We're doing it again this week, guys. We're doing a plumb bob, but it's going to be done on the scroll saw, and it all starts off with the weight. Well, making the weight on a scroll saw is an easy process. You just have to do a little preparation. And what I want to do here is I want to make the weight a 3-inch diameter circle. And here I have 2 squares of 1/8 inch hardboard, and they are 4 inches by 4 inches. And what these are going to be is our template. So we're just going to mark the center line on both of these squares. And then once we get that done, we're going to draw a 3-inch diameter circle on one, and we're going to draw a 2.5 inch diameter circle on the other. So on this one here, we will just mark a 3-inch circle, just like that. And as I said, on the second one, we will mark a 2.5 inch. Like that. And then we're going to take them over to the scroll saw and cut out these circles in the middle. Well, the secret of success to this weight is to have all your pieces the same size. What I mean by that is we have our 2.5 inch circle on a 4x4 square. We have our 3-inch circle on a 4x4 square. We have a 1/8 inch thick piece of maple and a second one, and guess what size they are? They're 4x4 square, as well as a 3/4 inch thick piece of maple, again 4x4 square. We're going to start off with the core of our weight, and that is our 3/4 inch piece maple by 4 inches by 4 inches. We're going to lay our smaller circle, our 2.5 inch diameter circle, line it up on all 4 edges, and we're going to trace out our circle using our template. Now what this represents is the internal diameter of our weight. We're going to take this over to the scroll saw and we're going to cut this out. Well, the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in a number 7 reverse tooth blade. That should be just fine for cutting through this maple. I've drilled a blade entry hole, and we're going to cut it out. Well, now that you have the center cut out, you need to choose one of your 1/8 inch thick pieces of maple, and we're going to apply some wood glue on this area here, and we're going to line up the sides, glue our top on it here, and clamp it together and let it set up. Well, the glue is not quite dried yet, but we can move on to the next step. And what that is to add our weight. And like we did last week, we're going to be using lead shot. So again, another thanks to Dan for the donation to the show. And please guys, get some gloves on if you're going to be working with lead shot. This stuff is pretty nasty. So either way, we're going to take that cavity there that we have created, and we're going to fill it with lead shot. just like that. And now what we want to do is apply more glue to our piece of maple and then take our other 1/8 inch thick maple square, 4x4 square, and glue that and clamp it on top. So essentially you have created a lead-filled sandwich. Just like that. And there we are. So making sure all the corners are lined up, we'll clamp that up and let it dry overnight. Well, it's the next day and I've removed all of the clamps from our weight assembly, and I'm just going to take the larger of our two templates for the outer diameter of our weight, and I'm going to line up all the edges and just trace inside to give us the outer perimeter of our weight. Well, with this piece I cut just outside the lines, and I'm just going to use the belt sander just to trim it up to the lines and get us a nice even circle. And there we have our finished weight. Now, it doesn't look like much. It really doesn't. But if we place it on the scale, this is a 1 pound weight. That is a heavy plumb bob. So if you want to make yours lighter, feel free. I don't mind the extra weight. It just means I use a little thicker string to hang it by. But if you want something lighter, you can adjust accordingly. Now, you can always weigh before you seal all this in. You could add more or less lead shot as need be. That's completely up to you. If you want it to, you didn't even really have to fill it before gluing it. If this was too heavy at this point, there's absolutely nothing wrong with drilling out the bottom, getting a hole there, and draining a little bit out until you get the weight that you want. For me though, I'm happy with a 1 pound plumb bob, and we can move on now to the rest of the build. Well, I have a piece of 1/2 inch thick walnut here, and I've used some spray adhesive and placed a piece of white paper on it. Only reason being, for clarity of the film. You guys don't need to do this step yourself unless you want to, but at least now you'll be able to see what I'm doing. The piece here is roughly 3 inches wide, and it can be as long as you want. My working area is about 8.5 inches, although I'm not going to use all of that. The first thing I want to do is I want to put a line down the middle, and that will be at 1.5 inches, just like that. And as well, somewhere at the top, roughly about maybe 1.5 inches down from the top, I'm just going to draw a cross line. Now, the reason for that cross line is I want to use a circle template, and I want to utilize those crosshairs to get it centered. So I'm going to be using an 1.25 inch diameter template. We're going to line it up on the crosshairs, and we're going to draw an 1.25 inch diameter circle. I'm trying to keep this design as simple as I possibly can because I don't really want to get too crazy on this. I mean, woodworking can get crazy enough as it is without having to muck around with getting all fancy on a simple design. So now it comes time to add in the weight element, and what I have here is I've drawn a center line here and transfer that line to the ends of my weight. I'm going to align that center line with our center line here, and where our crosshairs are, I'm just going to let the edge of our circle just kiss those lines. And once I get everything lined up, I am going to trace our weight. Just like that. Now you can see I didn't go all the way around because it's not really necessary. The only part I'm interested in is this section right here and what we're going to do with this next section. So now from where our bottom of our weight intersects with our center line, we want to measure down 1 1/8. Sorry, 1 1/4 I'm going to go down along that center line. So 1 1/4 inches, and I'm going to put an intersecting mark right there. From there, I want to bring a line from here right up to wherever it's going to intersect with our weight and draw a line there. Let me just find my ruler and I will do that. So from here to wherever it intersects, just like that, and another one here on this side. Now it is completely up to you if you want to leave that pointy. I'm going to leave it pointy just like that, but what I will end up doing is just kind of sanding it, a little hand sanding, just to remove that sharp point. So the next thing that I want to do here now is I want to trim this down to size. I don't want to cut this out just yet, but I do want to trim this end off as close to here as I can get. And then once I get that piece separated, we're going to take it over to the drill press. Well, I have the top of my design cut off, and the first thing that I've done is I've transferred my center line onto the top and marked the center. And I'm going to take this over to the drill press and I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch diameter hole right down until it passes our curve of our weight. So I'll drill it down to about here somewhere. Once I get that done, then we're going to add another little funky piece just to give it some character. Now I've changed our bit to a 1/8 diameter drill bit, and on our center line here, exactly halfway between the top of our 1 1/4 circle and the top mark of our weight, we're going to drill a through hole there 1/8 of an inch in diameter. Well, our next step is to take these pieces over to the scroll saw and cut them out. And we're going to cut around the outer perimeter of our 1 1/4 circle and just to the outside of the line where we traced for our weight. The reason I say just to the outside of it is because we're going to want to sand up to the line to get a perfect fit on the edge of our weight. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to cut along our straight lines and then cut just to the outside of this curve here, and then we're going to use an oscillating drum sander to sand up to the line. Well, now you want to take the pieces that you cut at the scroll saw and you want to sand them up to the line and periodically stop and check to make sure that they're fitting properly on your weight, because you want this to fit perfectly and butt right on there exactly so that we can glue it in place once we're done the sanding. Well, once you're happy with the way that things fit together, it's time to glue it permanently in place. And I have a 1/4 inch setup block here, and that is to raise our 1/2 inch piece 1/4 of an inch off the ground, because this is 1 inch thick and I want to have it centered here with a 1/4 inch left on either side. So we're going to apply a fairly generous amount of wood glue onto our pieces here, and once we get it spread with a nice even coating, We're going to set it in place, clean up the squeeze out, and then we'll let this set up. And just to confirm that we're centered on here, we'll just put a ruler right along there and line it up with the point. Just like that. All right, and now we can glue the top section on, which would be this piece right here. Well, all you need to do now is get a string of your choice. This may not be the one I use, it just happens to be what I have handy. And you want to tie yourself a nice little loop in the end. And once you tie that loop, you will slip it into the 1/4-inch hole until it bottoms out. And what I have is a 1/8 inch diameter brass rod. I have cut it to 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And once you get your loop seated properly into that 1/4-inch hole, the brass rod will just slide into place to secure your string in place and make it so that, well, your plumb bob is ready to use. And there you have it. A scroll saw plumb bob. Guys, this project is so simple yet so useful and so much fun to make. And the ability to change it and customize it according to your needs is astronomical. What if you don't like that round weight in the middle? Too boring for you? No problem. Make it oval, make it square, make it triangular. Make it whatever shape you want. Make it in the same shape as the mole that's on your right butt cheek for all I care, but customize it. Make it your own, because you're not limited here. You can do whatever you'd like. The top and the bottom, the finials, I guess we'll call it. I don't know what to call it. Very simple, very basic is what I've done it as, but you can make it as fancy as you want. If you want to have all kinds of crazy scrolling in there and fretwork, why not? Why not? Heck, you could make the whole thing a donut. A donut with a point on the end of it. That's all you would need. And then the string could just tie through the donut. Same concept, same process. The only difference is you need to drill one more hole in the middle kind of thing to make the donut hole, and you would need that area to put the lead shot in. Once the finish gets put on this plumb bob, guys, that walnut is really going to darken, and the contrast between the maple and the walnut is going to be spectacular. Not to mention that really shiny little brass 1/8 rod. It's really going to make it stand out, and it's a one of a kind. You will never find another plumb bob like this in the history of plumb bobs. Why? Because it's mine. Because I made it, and yours would be the same. Why not make a custom case for yours? Why not make it and make a little custom case to go in your toolbox to keep it protected and pass that thing on down through the generations? Use your imagination. Really, use your imagination. You could do so much with this. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I hope you don't think it was repetitive of last week's show. I just kind of felt bad because I threw a project out there that was only really doable on the lathe, and then I turned around and, kind of excluded a bunch of people who don't have that equipment. But if anything, it shows that there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to do things, and in woodworking, there's 100 different ways to do the same project or the same process. And as long as you're doing it safely, you're not wrong. So give it a try. If you haven't already, guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell so that you don't miss the notifications of future episodes of the show. I've had a lot of fun bringing this one to you. It took a lot longer than what I anticipated to make this one, but it really made no difference to me because I had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you're going to try it yourself. Guys, thank you for tuning in again this week, and I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.